At Guarulhos Airport in São Paulo, a simple-looking man named Mr. Manoel Pereira, 68 years old, waits for his flight. He carries a worn-out backpack and a straw hat that reveals his rural background. Beside him, a wealthy businesswoman, Elizabeth Alvarenga, 35 years old, dressed in designer clothes and with impeccable makeup, looks at him with disdain. Elizabeth Alvarenga wrinkles her nose as soon as Manoel Pereira sits near her at the boarding area. Elizabeth Alvarenga, whispering to her friend, "How can they let someone like that get on the same plane as us? You can smell the animals from far away." The plane begins boarding, and they end up sitting in the same row. Elizabeth Alvarenga's irritation grows when she realizes that Manoel Pereira is beside her. Elizabeth Alvarenga, loudly calling the flight attendant, "Look, I demand that this man change seats. He smells like animals. It's absurd that I have to put up with this." The flight attendant, embarrassed, tries to resolve the situation discreetly. But Manoel Pereira, with a sad look, hears every word. Manoel Pereira calmly, "Ma'am, I come from a farm where I take care of animals. The smell may be on me, but I paid for this ticket like anyone else." Elizabeth Alvarenga ignores him and insists on her demand, looking arrogantly at the flight attendant. Elizabeth Alvarenga, looking at the flight attendant. "Either he leaves or I leave." The flight attendant, with no choice, politely asks Manoel Pereira to change seats. Without complaint, he slowly gets up, grabs his backpack and hat, and moves to the back of the plane. The embarrassment is visible on his face, but he keeps his head held high. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Alvarenga smiles, satisfied with the outcome. Elizabeth Alvarenga, to her friend, "These kinds of people shouldn't be flying. Ridiculous, they have no respect." Elizabeth Alvarenga's friend tries to change the subject, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. However, Manoel Pereira continues his flight without saying anything more, looking out the window as the plane takes off. During the flight, Elizabeth Alvarenga and her friend continue talking about how money gives them power and control, not caring about the impact of their words. However, an older flight attendant approaches Manoel Pereira and asks, "Flight attendant, kindly. Are you okay, sir? I'm sorry for what happened." Manoel Pereira, with a gentle smile, responds, "I'm fine, dear. God always finds a way to make things right. This isn't the first obstacle I've faced in life." 2 days later, a video of the scene, filmed by an anonymous passenger, begins to circulate on social media, showing Elizabeth Alvarenga humiliating Manoel Pereira. The response is immediate, and the public on social media begins condemning Elizabeth Alvarenga's behavior, while praising the calm and dignity with which Manoel Pereira handled the situation. 2 days after the incident, Elizabeth Alvarenga is in an important meeting with investors at her luxury company. She has yet to realize that the video of the humiliation has gone viral on social media, causing outrage across the country. During the meeting, one of the directors confronts her. "Director, serious. Elizabeth Alvarenga, I need to show you something. A video of you is circulating, and it's not good for our image." He projects the video onto the screen. It's the footage from the plane where Elizabeth Alvarenga demands that Manoel Pereira be removed for smelling like animals. She watches, stunned, as her face changes from perplexity to despair. The video already had millions of views, and the comments called for a boycott of her company. Elizabeth Alvarenga, nervous. This was taken out of context." The investors watch her in silence, some already picking up their phones to check the backlash. Elizabeth Alvarenga tries to justify herself, but the atmosphere begins to grow tense. At the same time, Manoel Pereira, on his farm in the interior of Goiás, is sitting in front of his TV when he sees the video being broadcast on the news. He shakes his head, incredulous at how far this had gone. Soon, he receives a call from a reporter wanting to interview him. Manoel Pereira, surprised. "I'm not a man to be on TV, but if it's to tell the truth, I can try." The public, outraged by the treatment Manoel Pereira received, begins supporting a campaign for him to have justice. The pressure on Elizabeth Alvarenga grows drastically, with her company losing clients and investors pulling their support. Social media explodes with hashtags in favor of Manoel Pereira and against Elizabeth Alvarenga's elitist behavior. Manoel Pereira accepts the interview on a major TV network where he is warmly received. He speaks calmly about the incident, holding no grudge in his words. Manoel Pereira, calm. "I was born and lived my whole life in the countryside. We work with what God has given us, the animals and the land. What happened on the plain doesn't bother me. I just regret that some people don't see the value of simplicity." Manoel Pereira's words deeply move the audience, and his humility touches even the hosts. His story begins to inspire more people who see him as an example of strength and dignity in the face of adversity. He starts receiving invitations for lectures and events about rural life and overcoming obstacles, becoming a nationally respected figure. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Alvarenga's life turns into true chaos. Her company loses significant contracts and her reputation is in ruins. She receives numerous criticisms on social media and is forced to step away from her business temporarily. One day, Elizabeth Alvarenga decides she needs to face the consequences and tries to contact Manoel Pereira, seeking an opportunity for redemption. She sends a message to the TV program asking to meet him, not due to public pressure, but because she genuinely feels remorseful. Elizabeth Alvarenga, thoughtful. "I need to apologize to him. I can't live with this guilt." Manoel Pereira, always kind, agrees to the meeting. They meet at a simple cafe in downtown Goiânia. Elizabeth Alvarenga, visibly shaken, tries to hold back her tears as she apologizes. Elizabeth Alvarenga, emotional. "I was horrible to you, and there's no excuse for what I did. I'm here to ask for forgiveness." Manoel Pereira, with the same calm smile he showed on the plane, looks into her eyes and responds, "Manoel Pereira, kindly. Forgiveness is a choice, and I choose to forgive, ma'am. The weight you carry can be lifted, but you need to learn to see the value in people, no matter where they come from." Elizabeth Alvarenga, surprised by Manoel Pereira's generosity, feels something within her begin to change. The cafe where Elizabeth Alvarenga and Manoel Pereira are meeting is silent, except for the soft clinking of cups on saucers. Elizabeth Alvarenga, with tears in her eyes, doesn't know how to react to Manoel Pereira's nobility. She expected anger, resentment, but found only understanding and kindness. Elizabeth Alvarenga, still emotional. "I don't deserve this forgiveness. I've caused so much harm." Manoel Pereira, with his usual calmness, observes Elizabeth Alvarenga for a moment before responding. "Manoel Pereira, what you deserve, Elizabeth Alvarenga, is to learn from this. Life isn't about what we have or how much we earn, but about how we treat others. I hope this brings you a new perspective." These words strike deep into Elizabeth Alvarenga's heart. She realizes that the problem was never Manoel Pereira or his smell, but her own prejudice and arrogance. The silence between them is heavy with emotion, as if, in that moment, a painful chapter was closing. Later that day, social media explodes again, but this time with a video of the meeting between Elizabeth Alvarenga and Manoel Pereira, filmed by a customer at the cafe. In the video, Elizabeth Alvarenga can be seen apologizing, and Manoel Pereira's act of forgiveness is evident. The public, who had previously criticized her, begins to acknowledge her effort to make amends. Nonetheless, Elizabeth Alvarenga knows she still has a long road ahead. Her company is in ruins, and her public image needs rebuilding. However, Manoel Pereira's gesture not only frees her from immense guilt, but also gives her a new purpose. Elizabeth Alvarenga decides to start a social project supporting small farmers, using her influence to highlight the importance of rural and sustainable life. Manoel Pereira, on the other hand, continues his simple life, now recognized and respected by many. He turns down offers of fame, preferring to keep working with what he loves, his animals and his farm. Months later, Elizabeth Alvarenga's life has radically changed. She sold part of her luxury company and dedicated the resources to projects supporting small rural producers and family farmers. Her new life mission, inspired by Manoel Pereira, is now to connect the countryside with large cities, promoting sustainability and respect for humble people. During the inauguration of her project, Elizabeth Alvarenga makes sure to invite Manoel Pereira as the guest of honor. He, with his simple demeanor, arrives accompanied by his daughter and grandchildren. When called to the stage, Manoel Pereira, visibly uncomfortable with all the attention, says a few words to the crowd. Manoel Pereira is smiling. I never imagined that a commotion on a plane would bring me here. But if this story brought something good, let it be the understanding that every person, no matter where they come from, has value. The audience applauds enthusiastically, and Elizabeth Alvarenga, watching from afar, becomes emotional. That moment wasn't just about redemption for her, but about a real change in her life and worldview. Elizabeth Alvarenga and Manoel Pereira exchange one last look. The mutual respect is clear. They now share a story that transformed both of them in unexpected ways. Months later, Manoel Pereira returned to the tranquility of his farm, caring for his animals and living the simple life he had always cherished. From time to time, he still receives letters and visits from people who see him as an example of humility and wisdom, but he prefers to stay away from the spotlight. What happened on the plane was a life lesson for many, but for him, it was just another example of how the world can surprise us. Elizabeth Alvarenga, on the other hand, found a new passion in her social work. She travels throughout Brazil, promoting respect for small farmers, partnering with organizations and governments to help transform lives. The humiliation she once inflicted on Manoel Pereira served as a turning point, completely changing her trajectory. She never forgot Manoel Pereira's words about forgiveness and the value of people. Now, Elizabeth Alvarenga lives her life with more empathy and humility, determined to use her influence for good. And so two fates, unexpectedly crossed, were forever transformed. This was the story of how a moment of humiliation turned into forgiveness, changed not just two lives but inspired many others. The journey of Manoel Pereira, the humble elderly man from Goiás, and Elizabeth Alvarenga, the millionaire businesswoman, shows us how much we can learn from simplicity and humility. A lesson that the value of a person goes far beyond what they own, and that true wealth lies in how we treat others. If this story touched you in any way, leave your comment below. We'd love to hear what you think of this journey of transformation. Subscribe to Inspired Stories for more stories like this, bringing true life lessons and emotions. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to share this story with your friends and family. We'll see you in our next video for more emotional and reflective stories. Until then,